Unleashing gaming's immersive potential. Video games transcend reality through changing perspectives and dimensions, where game players are transported to alternate worlds, creating unparalleled immersion. Cutting-edge technologies are redefining the boundaries of immersion measurement, offering exciting possibilities for brands and for gaming communities alike. Here to tell us a little bit more about this is Cary Tilds, Chief Strategy and Advocacy Officer at Frameplay. Welcome, Cary.
All around me are familiar faces, worn out places, worn out faces. Hide my head, I wanna drown my sorrow. No tomorrow, no tomorrow. And I find it kinda funny, I find it kinda sad. The dreams in which I'm dying are the best I've ever had. I find it hard to tell you, I find it hard to take. When people run in circles, it's a very, very mad world. Mad world. Mad world. Mad world.
You'll get points later for the reference of that song to the gaming industry if you didn't know. It looks like my slide went one more over. Oh, thanks. This is the topic, so I appreciate being here today. Thank you so much to the ANA for the invite to this little startup who hopefully is making a big splash in the industry. So that video actually was created in 2022 and was first shown at the IAB Playfronts. That was the inaugural gaming industry event for the IAB. And at that conference, we launched a new metric called intrinsic time in view, so over a year now. And even now, there is a debate in the industry going on. If there's anybody who's participating in the IAB Attention Committee discussions, it's an incredible debate, an awesome conversation around the pivot to attention and activation of those types of metrics in our measurement schemas. And this is really important time and conversation about this debate as the demise of the third-party cookie and a more and more privacy compliant world is showing up in our measurement practice every single day. So it's really important for us to all think about new environments, not just the environments in the open web and the things of the past that we're used to, but what about those new environments like video games? Today I'm speaking about expanding our perspectives and the dimensions around the gaming world and how new metrics are created in this environment. So I'm going to do a little bit something different, and I need you all to participate. So I know people are multitasking, and I do that too when I'm at conferences. But just for 1 minute, I need you to look up and imagine that we are in a video game, okay? We're in a video game, and look around the room. This is your game environment, and we're all looking out across the street at this building. This is our window. Imagine you're here. And we can see the buildings, and we can see the ads on the buildings with the street lights. And you know, that's the window, and this is our game. So will you take this journey with me? Will you take it? I need some nods. Make sure you're listening. Good. Okay, good. Excellent. So your perspective in this game is actually via the game engine camera. That's how a video game works. Your perspective is through the game engine camera, and the game engine camera is a proxy for your gaze in this game, and in every game. Actually, that's how gaming works. So keep looking around the room for a minute. Just do this experiment for me, and you can see that the distance between this podium for me and the back of the room and the corner of the room and here is a different perspective. My perspective changes, my gaze changes, and my game engine camera is tracking that right now, okay? So keep looking around and think about the idea that the most fundamental element in video game play is actually the game engine mechanics themselves. That's how a game works. And the game engine camera is always on. Your game engine in this room and in real life in video games is the proxy for your gaze. Are you still with me? You still with me? You see some nods? Good, good, good. Okay, cool. So the game engine mechanics, overall, including the game camera, represent your gaze. You got that? That's so important for us right now to think about that, because that will, pun intended, change the game in terms of how viewability then is calculated and measured inside of video games, with the ads that are inside in video games. The orientation of the ad, as I mentioned, whether it's here or back there or over here, as I move around the room, as you move around the room and your gaze moves around the room, changes, right? And what changes? The ratio, the screen, the ad percentage, all of those things as you walk and move around the room via your gaze, via the proxy of the game engine camera, changes. And it has to be constantly recalculated. So imagine yourself now walking around the room. The distance between the ad over here and my gaze obviously is changing, and so on and so forth. You get it. I'm saying this ad nauseum for a reason. It is a fundamental truth about video games, is that perspective is constantly recalculated, and your gaze, the game engine camera is the proxy for your gaze. All of that means to say that when you talk about ad serving and measurement, it is different in a video game environment. Ad serving and measurement in a browser communicates between the browser and the web server. It's pretty basic. Hopefully you know that, because you're all in marketing and we all do digital, media as part of our holistic job. But ad serving within video games is different. And definitely take pictures. So how it works in our world for intrinsic in-game advertising is our SDK has to understand how each individual game engine works. What's a game engine? Example, Unity, Unreal, Coco's, custom game engines. They have multiple capabilities within a game engine that renders the experience of a game. So our technology has to understand the uniqueness of each of those game engines and then understand how to then evaluate the environment, ad serve in the environment, understand the viewability of the environment. So this image is for demonstration purposes only. It's much more complicated, our technology capability, than what's shown on the screen. We actually can understand the context and optimize the creative relative to the game experience at any given time. So how do the ads get into our game? Remember, we're in a game right now. We're looking out the window. Our ads get into the game because a game developer downloads our SDK, initializes it with their game engine, and then they can place, in this example, the Hollies ad right there. They can place the Hollies ad right in the game where they think that ad makes the most sense, and it optimizes the experience for gameplay. Number one thing is player experience. You want to make sure you optimize everything you do as a game developer, and this is no different. So they're placing the ad placement into the game, and then our technology has to understand which game engine they are using, and then understand, obviously, the interplay with ad serving and the associated measurement. We also have third-party interoperability with targeting and measurement, because we know that advertisers want their own targeting and their own measurement, and so that in itself is an entirely expanded capability beyond just the core capability you see. All this, in summary, opens up the opportunity for brand new inventory. Brand new inventory where there wasn't any inventory before. The inventory used to be hard-coded, and I'll speak to that in a minute. But the big idea here is really important, is that the game engine camera is a proxy for for the gamer's view. It's an always-on proxy for the gamer's view. Through this interplay, the AI technology calculates all of the media placement's viewability scores and the intrinsic time in view, that duration calculation. And yes, definitely, feel free to take pictures. In this example, you can see the telemetry data that we collect, the bespoke calculated metrics that we compile, and then we also can combine that with other metrics like brand lift analysis in this example to come up with a validated intrinsic time in view. Not only do we calculate the viewability duration and the gaze, the attention, but we get that validated by, in this example, brand lift metrics. You may be familiar with eye tracking, and I think there might be some of those partners here. We love eye tracking too. And Frameplay telemetry actually captures, as I mentioned, the always-on gaze of the game developer, which is obviously a proxy for their eye. And that's similar to eye tracking in some ways. As you can see, some of the variables match. But what's different is an eye tracking company will use oftentimes the camera of the phone when they're doing the studies. And in Frameplay's capability, we actually use our SDK that's always on, that calculates the viewability of all of the ads relative to gameplay. As I mentioned, that notion of the game engine camera as the proxy for the gaze allows us to constantly calculate where the player's perspective is at any given time. So it's really important, rather than doing panel-based or lab-based research, we have an always-on capability to measure the gaze. So we value our partnerships greatly with eye tracking companies. It's not to say that we think we're superior or better, we're just different. And we work very closely with eye tracking companies to understand the comparison between what the human eye sees and what the computer vision sees. So in this case, we did a 500 millisecond by 500 millisecond comparison in our study that we did with them to compare their eye tracking output to our intrinsic time in view capability. Not only did the research validate that our algorithm was spot on, but it also provided us with some comparison norms relative to all of the other things they study, which is wonderful to have that third-party comparison validation. And you'll see that we received a powerful read on the attention score relative to social and mobile norms. So we're really excited about that as well. So intrinsic time in view, viewability, duration, attentive time during gameplay can actually also be tied to outcomes beyond brand lift. And this is one of the most common questions I receive when speaking to brands or agencies alike. They say, well, what else can you do besides brand lift? Well, it certainly can be. We really appreciate the partnerships that we've had with ComScore and Happydemics, but it can also be tied to user engagement and purchase outcomes through our partnership with Kochava, which allows for us to do attribution measurement from these environments. It can be tied to location data with partners like Cubic, and the duration of the ad in front of the gamer can be basically tied to any outcomes for any of the measurement partners that you are working with, as long as we do one thing, which is treat the gaming environment authentically and ensure that we optimize for that gaming experience. That's it. And that is a full #1 vision for our company. So this new ad format comes with its own bespoke powerful measurement, but it also can be interoperable with what the industry values greatly. Here's a really big notion. All of this is brand new tech. And if any brand or agency wants to go game by game by game to try to set up this type of an infrastructure, it'd be really, really challenging. Game companies are very, private. They really protect that gamer's experience. So it takes a lot for a company like Frameplay to earn the trust of those partners. That's one. Two, as you saw, the tech is bespoke to the ideas of game engine mechanics, the ideas of gaze, incremental and new measurement that is bespoke to those environments, but also giving Frameplay the opportunity to connect to the game developers and represent their perspective to the advertisers, across advertisers, as a non-biased or unbiased supplier for them too. So those are benefits we bring to the table. Now, what does that bring everybody here? Everybody here then receives a brand new opportunity with new inventory that really goes across multiple games that normally wouldn't work together. It provides consistent placements. It provides consistent measurement. It provides industry interoperability with outcomes that you already trust in the industry. And so consistency is what we've built at scale, where in the past, these ad units or ad placements would have been hard-coded. And so we've brought this entire new measurement capability to bear, but developed it in a bespoke way that serves the industry overall. And we're pretty excited about the opportunity. We're looking forward to working with you. Now, I'm going to cut my time short because I know I have some questions that people want to ask. I just want to thank you for your time. I want to thank the ANA. They've been so incredibly supportive of this little startup that's making big waves in the media industry. It's one of the newest ad formats that's available, but it already has significant global scale with trusted measurability. If you're interested in signing up for be one of the first to know about our next research report, which should be coming out somewhat soon, and I'm teasing it because I already know what the data looks like, and it looks incredible. Please scan the QR code so you can sign up. All right, I just wanted to thank you so much. I know I ended short, but I know there's going to be some questions, and it's better to have the questions.
Well, thanks, Cary. I appreciate that. So I want to, before we go there, one thing. You talked about interoperable but bespoke metrics. So when we think about people who are doing planning across a broader buy, across different media, or MMMs, or things like that, can you talk to us a little bit about how these bespoke metrics can be sort of looked at side by side to make a cumulative decision across an entire buy or a plan?
Sure. So if you look at, there's lots of things that go into MMM, and obviously everybody here is way more qualified on that than me. The base level inputs are reach, frequency, and one of the first things that Frameplay brings is providing consistency across many games to the idea of reach and frequency, where the games, especially with this new ad format, didn't have before. They would have had a hard-coded ad, or they would have been ad serving themselves, and all of that would have been very inconsistent. So the first thing that we bring is a very consistent reach and frequency metric to an MMM that can be trusted. Why could it be trusted? Don't just believe us, even though we're the ad server. We also have third-party interoperability with third-party impression tags, for example. Mm-hmm. So we have, 15 different companies that have certified with us, including, Google, which everybody uses, that will allow any of the advertisers to validate, the impressions that we're showing. So that's kind of the first part. When I say bespoke, the nuance is when we calculate an impression, it is automatically a viewable impression, and it's funny because we've got, and actually I see some of our industry partners here, we've been having this kind of big, funny debate because Frameplay's developers never thought of just an impression. The only impression we calculate is a viewable impression because that's how they thought it should best be done, which blew my mind when I joined. So we calculate the viewable impression, and we just give that to everybody who runs a campaign with us. Now, how does that show up in a media mix model? It's early because this opportunity is somewhat early, and I would say we're looking forward to anybody who wants to work with us to work on that. But that's just icing and cherries on the cake, you know.
Great.
Yeah.
So we got a few questions that are coming in. Looks like actually quite a few. So let's start with that first one. What is the common identifier used for in-game advertising, and does it work across all gaming platforms?
Cool. Okay, I'm gonna be a little snarky for 2 seconds, and I'll ask a question and then I'll answer it. So, what is the common identifier used for websites? What is the common identifier used for mobile apps? What is the common identifier used for CTV? What is the common identifier used for out of home? You get it. I'm being snarky. I'm sorry. But we have all the data signals that any other digital platform would have, where someone would have to connect to a device. It's not scary, don't worry. It's all the same or similar data, which means we have to adhere to all of the industry privacy policies. We have to adhere to all the standards like everybody else. I'm really proud of Frameplay because we were one of the first group of companies that launched with a tag certified for transparency. And we had to show all of our data, you know, through Fiducia and Tag. You know, the long story short is it's everything you would expect, but we also have things that are very bespoke to the gaming industry, self-reported in some ways, game rating, game genre, but also some, you know, different diagnostics when you think about gameplay.
Yeah. Cool. So what is the target demography you can reach out through games?
Oh, I want to make sure I understand this. So what are the demographics?
That's how I would interpret
Okay.
it.
So that also is a really good question because gaming has been a bit of a mystery. And if you know me, I've been obnoxiously talking about gaming being missing as a media channel in everybody's systems under the planet. And so it makes sense that it's confusing of why don't we understand who a gamer is? Well, I hope I'm not repeating too much, but if you just, 3 billion, 33, 8+ hours a day. First I'll do that, 333.8, if you haven't heard me say that, 333.8. 3 billion people on the planet game. Average age is 33. They play 8+ hours a week. YouGov, Newzoo, ComScore, there's several research companies that talk about gamers, but what we have specifically done is work with partners that agencies and brands trust. For example, one of our partners, I believe a few are here, is TransUnion. TransUnion, we trusted to basically analyze our entire network, and that allows us to then describe a gamer in the same currency as you would describe somebody who watches CTV, or in the same currency as somebody who is on the internet searching for something. It is the best apples to apples comparison we can make by using their data to describe it, and we have, the surprise or not surprise outcome that basically gamers are as diverse as the human race. I believe Alison Schiffer said that, and I loved it. Basically when they're not gaming, they buy cars and they feed their children and they go shopping and they buy all the things that everybody does. So but we've used other data.
So maybe tied into that a little bit, some games are clearly individual user types of experience, and some are multi-user types of experiences. You talked a bit about the game engine and the lens of the viewer. How do you approach dealing with the fact that there may be one or more different people playing the game simultaneously?
That's a perfect question because first, I think it's really interesting that gaming has been pretty self-regulated for quite some time in terms of self-regulation, meaning they say they're E for everybody, T for teen, etc. So that's kind of the first thing. They also self-regulate in terms of categorization if they have, multiple players or if they're a single-player game. And then they also tend to pick one or sometimes more than one genre. And they have to do that, especially if they're a game at scale with Google and Apple Play stores, et cetera. So they go through a little bit of rigor before they even get big distribution. That's helped us quite a bit because we have two very large companies with systems that kind of do the checks and balances. Then we go in and we have a QA process to look at all of the games that are working in our network to make sure they are what they say they are, et cetera. That's the first thing. The second thing is that when you have ads inside of a game and an ad experience, a brand wants to make sure that the experience has no UGC kind of bad, nefarious content that it's next to. And so we go through pretty rigorous process of making sure, again, the categorization of the games are happening, but also, where are the brands going, and then what do the games want to accept? Like, for example, a lot of games don't want sin categories if they're E for everybody, because they're trying to reach a mass audience. So we kind of go through a lot of process related to that. Mm-hmm. And I think the final kind of word on this is that the IAB has been leaning in quite heavily into a new taxonomy in 2021, which is helpful, a new measurement standard in 2022 for specifically intrinsic in-game ads, which is helpful. And we're working on a new creative standard right now, which I believe, I don't know, I'm not the IAB, so I could say it and I won't get in trouble. Maybe Q4, who knows? But that's gonna be help. None of that matters though, unless the systems, the tools, are retooled to use the new taxonomy, the new standards, in the systems. So across the board, the billing, the buying, the planning, and the measurement systems have to be retooled. And I can tell you with absolute confidence, 0 are passing grades right now on that. So we have some work to do.
Let's turn to maybe one of our next ones on the screen here. Since the ads are based on the player's view, how do you ensure measurement and reporting of performance is consistent with other partners that are delivering in non-gaming environments?
Okay, so that's perfect. So we take our measurement that we do, which is a viewable calculation of each ad placement inside our game based on the interplay between the SDK and the game engine mechanics. So that's our foundation. And then we have, over the last 3+ years, worked on interoperability with partners around viewable impression verification, IVT, GIVT measurement, brand lift measurement, view through attribution measurement. I think I'm getting them all. So when we do that, we have to be consistent with how each one of those partners is, doing their measurement. So it does take quite a bit of interoperability work. We have incredible technologists. We're basically a technology company. So we work really hard to maintain the ideals and the authenticity of the measurement we need in order to value the environment properly, but also meet our measurement partners where they need to be to ensure basically consistency. That's as good as we can get on that. The second thing is different ad formats. As I mentioned, the IAB is working on a new creative standard for intrinsic in-game ads, which is what we do, ads that are intrinsically placed inside of the games. And that creative standard, I'm heavily involved, as well as many other companies, and that should help us address the higher quality ad content that we need. So I would say some of it is we actually do need it to be different, because the worst thing you can do is put a really, really bad ad in a high quality environment game like this. It's bad for the brand, it's bad for the game developer, it's bad for the player. So there are some things that we need to do there to ensure that it is effective and changes the game.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Well, Cary, thanks so much. We're out of time today, but it was wonderful having you here, talk to us about this, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you so much. Thank you.